Hello, welcome to the new Industry Workshop stream. We got Alex Heath and we got Alex Brady today. How are you guys doing?
Hi guys.
Hello then.
We had a lovely opening and at the end we had a cup of Titus. Really lovely.
Hi guys, sorry.
That guy.
Excellent. How is everyone this evening?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for joining us.
And also, I wanted to say sorry to everyone for screwing up yesterday with my technology ineptitude. That was entirely my fault with the microphone not working. But thanks very much for being understanding, everyone, and having me back today. So I appreciate it.
No problem at all. It's all good. It's good to have you on this fine, rainy Tuesday.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah.
Summer's over. That's it. It's done.
That is it.
This is autumn now for the next 6 months. Yeah.
Enjoy.
That was a short summer. So let's start with looking at some of your work, Alex. I'm sharing your screen. So I leave that actually up to you. What is the stuff you want to show and talk about? I noticed that whenever you design something, you don't just post one image. You have like 5 or 6 images of the same or iterations on the same design.
Yeah, I find that helps take the pressure off one image being the one that has all the stuff you want to say in it, because often you'll have contradictory things that you want to do with a picture. Like maybe one has to be, you want to show something going very fast, like this is an example of how I would do that. What I like to do is make the thing first, build it, and then photograph it as a separate operation. So it's a bit like, you've built your model of your car or whatever, and then you've shot it going fast down a street, but also looking cool parked. And it's very difficult to make something look cool parked and going fast.
Yeah.
So just have 2 different images, or 5 or 20, and then maybe 7 of them don't work, or 12 of them don't work, but then maybe you've got 8 that do. So I like to just throw a lot and see what sticks, really. I find that takes the pressure off. If one's not working, it's not the end of the world, because you've got 12 others. You know what I mean? I'm not someone who can just create something out of the air. I like to play the numbers and hedge my bets, basically.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes you think a design's going to work in the view you've got in your mind, and then when you put it in there, and you actually can't tell like the length of it, or
absolutely,
like the foreshortening really messes with the design. So
that's a really good point. I mean, for example, if can you guys see what I'm sharing on my screen?
Yeah.
So what I'd like to have is some representative views showing the thing in a fairly, like the whole object in a single image that you can see clearly what shape it is, and maybe different configurations of its functional state. So like, for example, in this one, it's got swing wings that you can, I wanted to illustrate this without having to write any words on it, that the wings swing open. And the easiest way to do that is just to show it, But I also might want to do some detail shots of the daily life of the object, because I really love getting into what it would be like to live on this thing, or what it would be like to everyday use. And it's very difficult to show the entire object in a detail shot. They're just contradictory functions of the image. And so it makes sense to have more than one. I think I always used to try and draw one thing, and it would just be so much pressure, because if I'd drawn something wrong way it was going, I'd invested so much time in it that I couldn't change it without, the sunk cost was so high already that I just couldn't change it. Whereas this method means that you can be flexible. And also these images are only the final ones. I'll have done hundreds before that, to kind of, for my own benefit, see how stuff's working. And in fact, as I was saying before we began, I've got a link, if anyone's interested, to my Dropbox with all of my project progressions in it, that anyone can have a look through and just see how it's gone from basic sketch to finished product, or as finished as I kind of before I got bored. So I'll put that in. I think the link is in the top of the chat, so if anyone's interested, feel free to have a look through that.
I put a new one in as well, just in case.
Just in cases.
Yeah, but I find that really smart. Whenever I look at people's portfolios, whenever they want to apply, they just show one version of something. It's actually really smart to show all these different ways of selling it.
Sometimes it's rare that I get an image in my head that I mean, this is an example of one where I was kind of walking down the street thinking about it, and I knew what I wanted it to do. Like I knew I wanted this thing for anyone who hasn't seen image, the idea is this is a giant space elevator that lifts hydrogen out of a gas giant planet and delivers it to orbit where it can be loaded onto ships, a bit like an oil refinery today. They're built on the coast so that the ships can come in and load up. So I knew I wanted to show the ships in the foreground, and I wanted to show the shaft of the elevator going right down to the surface. So that's kind of dictated what the composition of the image. And that, you play around with details afterwards, but the actual core image is, I think it's on my art stage, and I have a progression of sketches there. But it's rare that I get that insight, and often I'll have to just build something and photograph it from different angles and realize that a lot of my early ideas didn't really work or could do with improvement. And it takes time to kind of evolve it towards something that I like. So if anyone has a kind of project that they're working on and they like aspects of it, but it's not fully what they want, just make a note of make a wish list of all of the stuff that you would change. Like, I think this needs fixing and this isn't right, and then just work down the list. It's really easy that way, because otherwise you haven't got these niggling problems with it, like, the perspective's not quite right.
Yeah.
But, just rip it apart and fix the things you hate, and I find that really satisfying. It's like scratching an itch.
I'm sharing that bit on ArtStation right now that you mentioned because I had it open. It's really funny. So you got
brilliant. Sorry,
a really abstract pencil sketch on like lined paper.
Yeah.
And then you go to a really abstract digital one, and then bam, there's something beautiful. Such a funny transition.
A lot of the time, I think it's good to keep the composition something that you can sketch in 2 seconds, because that means it's strong and simple. And then the detail can go on the top, the jewelry can go on the top. But if you keep the composition good and strong, then the image will read nice and confusing. Yeah,
definitely, especially if you're doing something that is like a technology that's like not realized at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not something that we're actually used to seeing. You've got to sort of, not hand holding, but you have got to
absolutely, yeah. I mean, you've got to strike a balance between it being interesting and new, and also not so incomprehensible that it just doesn't make any sense. Like you say, with high technology, futuristic technology, it looks kind of magical, but you still want to show that there are engineering constraints. Person will just be like, what is this? Like some kind of amorphous cloud of colors? I don't know what this is. So yeah.
And you're like, well, actually it's like a smart material. But...
Yeah, and if you have to explain it, then you're kind of in the wrong business. We're not writers, we're artists. That's a whole other world of words, which I don't know anything about. So I'm like colors and shapes, that's my thing.
Marnix in chat is saying, that is why I love using 3D. I also started to use flow design to test aerodynamics of my designs.
Oh, okay. Is this Marnix Reckers?
Yeah.
I've
seen some of his, yeah. I love his stuff that he's put into this aerodynamic simulator to kind of react in an airstream. I think that would be really interesting to see what would happen if you start adding bits on, because I know particularly in the 70s and 80s, or maybe before there were supercomputers, aerodynamics was very difficult to do. The equations are quite tough, so they just sort of did it by trial and error, like add an under tray here, add a spoiler there, and see how it affects the behavior of the car. And I think it would be really cool to see his stuff evolve in response to putting it into the airstream. Like, it has the big wheels, which are very unaerodynamic, but if you fed them in, would it ruin the look of the vehicle because you couldn't see the hubless wheels? You've got to strike a compromise there, but it would be lovely to see it evolve. An example would be the Red Bull X1, 2008, I think. Red Bull and McLaren were given like a kind of imaginary infinite budget and said, okay, make the ultimate high performance racing car. And it looks amazing. Like, it's all this evolved by aerodynamics. There's no aesthetics whatsoever. It's pure aerodynamics. The only aesthetics is the paintwork, basically, this millimeter thick layer of colors. The rest of it is pure aero, and it just looks fast. It looks wicked. So
it looks really alien, actually.
Yeah, doesn't it? And you see videos of it going around the track at the speed that it physically could travel at, and it's like, it looks cartoonish because it's so fast and stuck to the ground with fans. So it's just ridiculous.
That looks great.
It's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just browsing through it right now. Google, it's insane.
So those spats on the rear wheel arches, the covers, they improve aerodynamics because you're not having the air flow into a big messy tire wheel assembly, but they're also designed so that it can come off and you can change the tire easily. You know, there's a compromise there.
So why do we even see other designs now on tracks? I mean, I've never seen this one in a race.
So why is what you mean is this is the optimal one? Why does
Yeah.
anything ever exist? I think a lot of it to do in Formula One is just rules to keep the racing interesting and a compromise between danger and safety, which is kind of a difficult one to put into words. It's like it needs to be safe, but it also needs to be dangerous enough for people to be interested in it. So they can't go too fast. I think this is too fast. So if this thing does crash, the results would potentially be, you know, incredibly dangerous. So I think that's why. But I think that's a really good point. Like, why have they not all converged on this design?
Yeah. Well, I think don't they sort of introduce every year, like they ban certain tires or they ban this design,
yes,
and then
exactly.
So every year there's almost like a new design constraint, and that's part of the, I guess.
Absolutely. I personally, I'm not a giant fan of Formula One as much as I am, say, Le Mans or GT, because those cars, the rules are much less strict. So people come to the race with all kinds of different racing philosophies. Like some cars are front wheel drive, some rear, some are electric hybrids, some are pure electric, some are engines. And so you get this amazing kind of battle between different technologies and different philosophy. I love to see like wacky races. You know, some cars are good on the corners, some cars are good on the straights. That makes the racing much more interesting to me. So I think that's how I would run Formula One if I was in charge.
Well, it's your lucky day because we've got an announcement to make. You are.
I'm in charge. Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. Okay. My first decree is that you're not allowed to drive with less than 2 Stellas in your bloodstream. That's just...
Yeah, it's the drink driving.
If you're not drink driving, you're disqualified. Get off. You're not welcome around these parts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't wait for the new season to start, honestly.
And then end very abruptly afterwards when everyone dies.
Yeah.
I'm quite excited for this robot racing thing. I don't know whether that will completely remove the emotional connection with the cars because it's robots. I think so. I want to see these cars go 400 miles an hour, and like when they crash, they're just reduced to like tiny in this amazing crash, and no one dies because it's robots. I think that'd be really cool. Like, you know, the Daniel Simon race series. Have you guys seen that?
No.
Yeah, what they want to do is have like drone cars that battle each other, and then just throw every technology you can at it, no limits, and just see what happens. And I think that's going to be so cool. I love the idea of it.
If it's anything like Robot Wars.
Yeah, well, I doubt it'll be as exciting as Robot Wars. I mean, there's, you know, come on. But aim high. Even if you fall short, you know, you're gonna do okay.
Robot Wars.
Get Craig. Is it Craig Charles?
Yeah.
Dave Lister on it. Yeah.
That'd be so good.
I've diverted conversation into cars. You can tell I'm a real geeky petrol head.
I didn't know you like cars.
Sad, isn't it?
I think that's part of being an artist, especially being a concept artist. You just know so many things about very particular topics. Like every person I know that's a concept artist has that sort of thing. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know you guys do, having talked to you before, but I think and seen your work, it's very evident. But don't you think that? I mean, let me see what you think of this. My favorite part of the project is once I've had the idea, then finding all about the stuff that I need to draw. Like if I want to draw like a big horse, I need to understand how horses work. I need to understand how saddles work. Stuff that I would never otherwise be interested in, all of a sudden becomes the absolute focus of my interest. And you learn all of this crazy stuff because once you've got to build something, you kind of know a bit more about it than you did before. I absolutely love that bit. And suddenly, you focus your interest on some object that up until now has never been of interest, and you learn that actually it's fascinating. There's all kinds of interesting stuff going on. So that's one of my favorite bits.
Yeah, and you find yourself getting interested in things that you wouldn't have necessarily thought you'd be interested in either.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a bit like travel. Like when you go traveling, you get places you would never have otherwise chosen to go to on the way somewhere else, and find that they're super interesting, and you'd never have come here before otherwise. But now that you are here, wow, this is amazing. And it's a bit like travel in that. I think it kind of broadens the mind a bit, which is nice, because otherwise I tend to just retreat into comfort zone and get quite bored, fed up with myself, because I'm just not doing stuff that interests me.
Yeah, Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Well, earlier this year, or at the end of last year, I learned all about modern hospital beds.
Okay, perfect example.
Yeah, it felt so useless knowing that stuff now. Although, if I were to design anything robot-like, I will probably think of that hospital bed and implement all the stuff that I learned from that into this robot.
Yeah.
So eventually, we'll still have use someday.
That's how you come up with really good ideas, I think, because sooner or later you'll be like, oh, wow, hang on, that thing from the hospital bed could fit perfectly here. And you never know, sometimes you come up with ideas that could actually be like proper product design ideas. I saw one the other day of a wheelchair that mechanically lifted a guy up to eye level, which means he wasn't always sitting down at waist height, which is obviously socially very important, that you can see people at eye level. We use this metaphorically all the time, you know, kind of level gaze and meet someone's eye and all of this other stuff. You don't want to be looked down on. All of this stuff, you know, it's something that a guy in a wheelchair has to deal with all the time. So a technology that frees them up to come up to normal height, it seems like a minor thing, but I think it's actually huge. And the way they did it was not through motors and batteries and all of this high technology stuff. It was just through bent shaped pieces of metal like you'd find in a hospital bed that raises. I thought that's a brilliant piece of work. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It solves this difficult social problem in a way that can be built cheaply. That to me is far more exciting than a new concept car that is just a kind of variant on last year's concept car. I don't care about that stuff anymore, to be honest.
But that's the whole thing. The guy that invented the Segway, he got super famous for inventing that. However, not so very long after that, he invented a filter that could filter any water and also turn water into more water.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
And now he works with Coca-Cola because that's the only company that distributes all around the world. What?
That's a beautiful idea. I think that's absolutely amazing. No, I thought he died. I thought the developer.
Well, that's a weird misconception because he invented Segway and then he sold it to a guy, and that guy is the one that died.
Oh, I see. Because he was on like a cliff path and gave way to somebody else and accidentally fell off the path, tragically killing himself.
What I heard is he got a heart attack, but that's because I rode a Segway last week.
Citing an urban myth.
I mean, it'd be better if he was on a Segway.
Yeah, I thought maybe someone was pulling my leg, because I heard the story was that he was going down a path on the edge of a cliff by the sea, as you do, on a Segway, gave way to somebody else coming the other way, and just kind of misjudged it and fell off the cliff and died.
It's partially true though, because he had a heart attack while riding a Segway.
Oh, right. Okay.
And while having a heart attack, you can't really control your body that well, so he then drove off the cliff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I like it. I like this.
Still, it comes to us all, and it would be nice to leave something substantial behind, like a filter that, cleans water or something. That would be a nice, you come into the world and leave something like that after you go. That's pretty much winning, I think.
Oh,
yeah, I think you win that. You win big points for that one.
But you haven't even seen that on the news. It's like nobody cared. But the Segway is awesome, but nobody cared about the water filter and actually solving thirst and drought in countries.
It's always stuff like that makes the difference. These kind of non-glamorous things. Like I read a lot recently about how if you irrigate soil with water, the water evaporates and leaves the dissolved salt behind. And if you do that too, the soil becomes poisoned by the salt and nothing will grow. So you basically can use up farming land and then it's just screwed. You can never use it again because it's full of salt. But what you can do is create pipes that irrigate the soil but let the salt through, only the water, using some kind of high-tech, nano whatever. And so it's not something that glamorous like a spaceship or a laser gun. It's just a pipe, but it could save enormous amounts of trouble because you're not poisoning the farm soil, which I think is an amazing.
Yeah,
that is amazing indeed.
It's difficult to put on a poster, it's just a pipe, but it makes enormous differences to the world in a way that
almost that's the poster, isn't it? You just put a pipe on a poster and you're like,
yeah,
guys, that's the pipe.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that really scares me. Okay, quickly, I don't want to go into this too much, but like the climate change is out, and floods mean that food is more expensive. Food being more expensive means people don't have enough food. That means riots. That means wars. In a world with 10,000 nuclear weapons, I think a small nuclear war could erupt between two countries that haven't got enough food, like India and Pakistan. The monsoon has just failed this year again. Keeps doing that. You've got 800 million people with not enough food. I see that devolving into tribalism and genocide very easily, and this terrifies me. So the idea that you can come up with a technology that's you just use these pipes instead of the old ones, and it solves this giant problem. That to me is the stuff that could get us out of this bind that we're in at the moment, which seems to be a one-way road off a cliff. So I'm far more interested in that stuff than I am the stuff that I draw, in a way, because I'm kind of just, the stuff I draw is always like spaceships and science fiction stuff. But I think the stuff that really matters in historical terms is pipes, things like that.
We should start drawing pipes, and then just,
come on,
write the technical aspects of what
pipes.
happened.
The Gathering. You could have a pipe. There's Pipe World, Pipe City, Pipe Sim. There's all kinds of fun you could have. We don't need, Halo is a kind of a pipe, isn't it? It's like a very short pipe, sort of a ring. It's like a pipe. Put loads of halos together, you've got a pipe. Yeah,
that's what they were trying to do. That's what the Forerunners are up to.
Exactly. You see.
Exactly.
I actually really loved the story in Halo. The fact that there was this history as to where the halos come from and why, and it turned out that they were this giant galactic sterilization machine to prevent the flood plague spreading. That's a really awesome science fictional idea. It's not often you get big science fiction ideas like that in it's just like punch the guy, get the glowing thing,
turn
punch some
off
more guys.
that red switch.
Turn the switch. You're like, what? Come on.
And they're like, if you don't turn the switch, then no. And you're like, well,
Well, you got to let Peter Dinklage do it. You don't actually do it. You just stand there while Peter Dinklage turns the switches it on or off, whatever.
and then he doesn't work for them anymore. Take care.
Poor guy. Poor guy.
You're actually getting a nice compliment here. Someone is saying, Alex is so cool. Many thanks to her for submitting her work for our student project. Her work is always interesting to observe.
Oh, thank you very much. It's very kind of you to say. I'm very flattered. I think when I was growing up, and still, if I see a piece of work that makes me want to look into it, and there are little Easter eggs for me to find, I always loved that. It was like, wow, I can kind of imagine myself being there. So that's generally the kind of experience that I would like for people to have seeing my stuff. So it always pleases me when I hear people have kind of enjoyed it and got a kick out of it, and they've imagined themselves that it's a real world. Just forget, imagine this was real, what it would be like.
Yeah, definitely.
I really like art because as a person, I'm not very interesting. I'm not particularly funny or good looking or dynamic in any way, but with your artwork, you can say a lot person, I find. So you can kind of be your cleverest, most interesting self in a way that is difficult to do when you're, just in an office or talking to someone. So yeah, I think personally, I'm kind of disappointing to meet if you like my work, because I'm actually kind of boring. But if you do like my stuff, then I'm very flattered. I hope you enjoy it. I'll try and keep making stuff that you find entertaining. It's being an entertainer. That's kind of essentially what an artist is. Make someone enjoy what they see, and also maybe think.
My artwork and myself aren't that interesting. So
it's the double whammy.
Double whammy of should have been an accountant.
You guys are too mean about yourself.
You have to be, right? Otherwise, you can't fully call yourself an artist.
I don't know.
You have to be struggling. That's right.
Yeah. You got to keep up the appearance of struggling.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't even need to try. I mean, that stuff comes naturally. I really am the kind of archetypal artist weirdo. Like, I live in a single room. I have no money. I work all night. I'm kind of moody. I don't need to fake it. It comes naturally to be a weirdo.
Well, good.
Yeah. So the people send in work, right? And for people in
Yeah.
chat who didn't know,
How
you
show
can
me.
Let's have
send
a
in
look.
your work.
How do you want me
Let's have
to distribute these JPEGs?
I don't know. Is there a place where we can see them all?
Shall I put
I
them
can
in
see the
our
chat,
Hangout?
or I can go to Facebook.
Let me see. Shall I put them in our Hangout chat?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm just looking at your 3D code. I mean, it really is the future, that, isn't it? We're gonna be using virtual reality a lot, and that is clearly how we're going to make these environments quickly. Paint.
Let me pan around this for a sec. We can have a look-see.
Can you imagine trying to model that in like polys or something like that? It would take the rest of eternity. You know what I mean?
I've made this literally while we've been chatting, not even paying too much attention on it. And that's not because I'm good at this. It's because this program is easy.
Absolutely nuts. So this combined with photogrammetry, you know, you're starting to get to the point where you can build 3D environments that you can move around in virtual reality that are you know, there's enough what's the word I'm looking for, fidelity, that you can pick an object up and examine it, and it looks real up to that point. You know, I think there's on ArtStation right now, there's a guy who's made some like Swiss food in 3D, like sausage and cheese and stuff. It looks real. It's the most amazing 3D assets I've ever seen, I think, and it's all just done with this and photogrammetry, and wow, yeah, it's the future.
Amazing.
So I feel like my work's becoming more as I go on, because I just like painting in a kind of style that looks like it's done. You know, it's deliberately aping the acrylic gouache paintings of Sid Mead and John Berkey and stuff like that. It's kind of pre-obsolete, obsolete before it's even begun.
Yeah, I think there will always be a market for painterly looking things.
It's certainly the stuff that I enjoy doing, because you get all the benefits of 3D in that, you know, the perspective is perfect and you can spin around the object and find the nicest view, which I would never have thought to draw freehand. But then you get all of the control in 3D that's very difficult, or is very difficult for someone of my ability, which is admittedly pretty weak, to do. In Photoshop you can do with a couple of, like, you know, a smudge. So it's 3D's brilliant at certain things, 2D's brilliant at other stuff, and I find the hybrid is just the funnest way to work. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I've had to send them to you guys on Facebook because our chat isn't there. And then I'll open up the other ones that I've got.
Let's have a look. Who's this one from?
So you have that, and that is from Lorenzo.
Tosi.
Yes.
Nice. Hello, Lorenzo. So this reminds me of the entity from South Park, which is never a bad thing. Monowheels, I think everyone goes through a monowheel phase, right? I know I have, and I come back to it quite often. I'll be like, man, monowheels are so awesome. I love them.
Gotta get me some monowheel.
Yeah, do you know? I mean, they're just cool, aren't they? They're just cool objects. I love that the second photograph in the reference image is how it's canted over to one side so the guy can see. That's so strange. I absolutely love it. That, you know, that it's asymmetric and there's just one wheel. That blows my mind. I do love these things. So from a technical point of view, I think the design is nicely presented. You can see what's going on. You can get a sense. The jet, obviously, you know, the function of it's pretty obvious. It pulls it along. I might move the jet out to one side, or maybe have two, just so that the exhaust isn't going directly into the front of the vehicle. But I have a kind of inconsistent relationship with engineering functionality. Like, at some points I'll be like, well, it has to be here because the engineering says so, and then other times someone will be like, yeah, but you don't need a swing wing Ekranoplan, and I'll be like, shut the fuck up, don't tell me what I don't need. You know what I mean? So I have a very loose and inconsistent attitude to that stuff. Sometimes I'm very concerned with it being something that looks like it could work, and other times I'm like, meh, who cares, just it looks cool. So it's I feel like a hypocrite ever criticizing someone else's stuff when it's over practicality. So take it with a grain of salt if I say, well, this probably wouldn't work in engineering terms, because I'm not an engineer. I'm just a bullshit artist, you know.
sometimes I get strangely like hung up on things like that. I'm like, yeah, well that should work. Like forgetting the fact that it's made of like some sort of gel.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, this is entertainment. We're not designing real things. We're designing entertainment. And I like to think that maybe some of the ideas, you know, for example, in Star Trek, they had automatic door, and they were just literally two guys, I think, pulling the doors apart when Kirk walked through them. But then that was inspiring to engineers who were like, man, that could be really useful. And now you have automatic doors absolutely everywhere. So you never know. Maybe something that you do as an entertainment project in a movie or a comic or your own, you know, projects might just filter into the real world in a way you didn't expect. So maybe you can have more influence than you might at first think by putting these ideas out there. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen the film The Abyss? You've seen the film The Abyss.
Yeah, of course, many times. I love The Abyss.
So like the idea of a mini submarines came from them making up a mini submarine.
No way. That was literally the first. Wow. Okay.
And also they do. They put the rat in a container with like oxygenated saline solution.
I mean, yeah, who doesn't see whether he drowns in the liquid breathing material?
They did that for real on the set with the rat, and they were like, yeah, but it works. That's the thing. The rat survives.
Wow. So that was actually a real thing, that you can actually breathe. Because I heard that you could breathe water for a while because your lungs are not good at extracting the oxygen from water, but they can do it a bit. It's just not enough to sustain life. So you kind of, you know, you can extract 10% of the oxygen you need. So it prolongs your life by 30 seconds when you're drowning, as opposed to if you're in vacuum or something. It's kind of interesting to me. Maybe you could adapt people's lungs to work underwater or something. You know, the idea that you could make gills.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, James Cameron of that era is my absolute hero. I love the late 80s, early 90s James Cameron. He just absolutely kills it. Like, he's got the script down. He knows what people want from an exciting story. He's got all of the kind of background in special effects and model making, so his shots are always inventive. I love how he mixes high-tech computers with puppetry and basically what are magic tricks. Like, he'll just use misdirection to give you this really convincing shot. There's a really good example of his cleverness where he did, you know, the bit in Terminator 2 where they cut open Arnie's head to access the control chip to change it from read-only to write-read. I think it's in the special edition of Terminator 2. And there's a really clever shot where he basically got in a double. He put an advert out for a double to Linda Hamilton, and a double, I think that actually one Arnie is real and the other one is a puppet, and he sits them in front of a fake mirror so that the real Arnie sits on the other side, the puppet is on this side, the fake Linda Hamilton is on this side, and the real one is on the other side, and it looks perfect. They match the movements. You'd never realize that it wasn't what you actually think it is, and it's actually just a clever magic trick. That to me is movie magic at its best. I love that, and it's all in service to the story. Like, none of it is just, we need a huge fight here because we're at 47 minutes, you need a fight. It's all in pursuit of the story. He kind of seems to have gone a bit nuts recently. After I think Titanic's pretty good, but after that I lost interest in Avatar. But those, you know, from like 1 to, or Battle Beyond the Stars to Titanic, literally my hero. Can't get enough of it. I think he's brilliant. So I'd love to meet him one day and just be like, thank you so much for your amazing movies.
Just
Avatar sucks, I hate it, but you know, the rest of them are amazing.
And then they'd be like, peace out, drop something, walk off.
Yeah, because here's his mic that doesn't work. Boom, I'm off. See you later.
Yeah, and he's like, who is that guy?
He probably physically attack you. He seems like quite a confrontational guy, but absolutely my hero. I love him. I think he's brilliant. So
I this might sound like a real noob thing to say, but in Aliens, when they've got the like cryo sleep chambers, well, like they were looking for like ways to save money on the budget because they're budget. And so they were like, oh, we've got to pull this scene, like, because we're not going to build, you know, all these chambers and make them electric and this and that.
Right.
So what they did is they already had 2 built, and they just mocked up, like, in front of those 2 what the kind of bracing would look like, and then put just a huge mirror in, and then another mirror in.
Brilliant.
So then they ended up with like 8 or 10 of them. and then they just manually operated the arm just with big levers off screen.
Yeah.
But
That's
when
a magic trick in the audience. I think that's I'm forgetting a lot of names, but like absolute magic who made me love movie special effects and science fiction movies. Not so much the CGI Cameron. It's become quite easy to do. I mean, we've all talked about this, but like, and of course CGI. You can do stuff like the giant battles in Lord of the Rings, but I think there's a certain amount of like realism that you get with a bit, for example, that you just don't get with CGI. The ambient occlusion on a puppet. I always think that, and I love working over photographs because you can have that absolute realism from the start. I think that's, I don't know, there's something strangely convincing about, like for example, a friend of mine, Steve Wheeler, he makes all these beautiful models of space. Fun to work over in Photoshop because he's a genius. He's come up with these amazing designs, and the lighting is just perfect. Let me show you an example. So this is a model he's built. I've actually seen this. It's only like a foot long, and he just builds this out of like stuff he finds lying around and like plasterwork, and they look amazing. And so when you Photoshop them, the lighting looks really good, and you can then use that as a palette to then paint the rest of the image to kind of match. I absolutely love it. It's so much fun, and it's kind of reminiscent of the old optical effects that doing everything in camera, doing as much stuff as you can in camera means that it's super realistic, and you don't have any kind of like CGI Wolverine claws. Have you seen that in one of the Wolverine films where he's got these claws that come out and they're CGI, and you're just like, no, no,
like Wolverine.
Oh god.
Again, you can tell that I just watched the making of Aliens the other day.
What's it called? Superior Firepower or something? That 3 hour.
Yeah, epic. So
how brilliant is that?
No,
it's one of my favorites because I love how it's got them at the time talking, and then like 10 years later discussing it again. It's the perfect making of documentary. I love it. I've watched that so many times.
And everyone trying to be sort of like diplomatic about saying things about people that they probably really hate.
I got the impression. I mean, apart from the fact that there were quarrels on set because they wanted more breaks and stuff, and Cameron was under pressure because they made it for like $35 million.
Yeah,
which
that's nothing.
That's less than the advertising budget for a movie in a single country. They would spend $1 billion on advertising a movie now. So yeah, it just blows my mind how much they did for how little, and what a genius. And I think to get that stuff done, you have to be an absolute dictator, don't you? To make people do stuff. But what redeems it for me is like there's the guy who's moving the little hands on the Queen alien, and he's like, no, do it like this, for goodness sake. And you think he must have been like that with every single aspect of the film. No wonder he was a short-tempered bastard, because think of the stress. Think of the pressure that you've got to be under to do that, and yet he pulled it off. So yeah, one of my absolute heroes. I'd love to work for someone like that, even if he was an absolute pain.
He'd learn tons. So,
yeah.
What was I going to say? I didn't know this, and when you watch the film again, you still can't even really tell. But the bit where Ripley and the Queen alien are like fighting in the power loader. Like a lot of that fighting is done with like miniatures in stop motion.
Wow.
And the bit where they actually like go into the airlock, and the alien pulls her in.
Yeah.
Those are all like 3rd scale models that drop from the ceiling into there. But and then they cut it with footage like that they just turned upside down and stuff.
Yeah.
When you see it, it's just like seamless. You would think that she was in a full life work.
It's genius, isn't it?
It's
It's literally genius. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, because they use models, they still look much more convincing than CGI. And I think it's partly because I don't want to do down CGI because it's making huge leaps and bounds at the moment, and it's very impressive what they can do now. I don't want to kind of say, oh, CGI is crap, but flopped around in a realistic way as it fell down the shaft into the airlock, and bits broke off it, which I always think more you can use that realism in your project, rather than having to design the whole thing falling apart, you can just let it fall apart by dropping it down a hole and filming it. You know, it's I don't know, it's so much more real to me when you see models and puppets and stuff. So
exactly.
And I think there's a big return to that now, isn't there? Because people are wise to this now, and the new Star Wars was very consciously models and stuff, and I think it's better for it. You know, it's nice to see people interacting with physical objects, not blurry.
It's got to be great for actors as well.
Sprites. Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, you can actually feel like you're in the. I mean, I feel very sorry for the people who are in the prequels, because they did try. I mean, you can see that they've tried. You know, in the prequels, the design work's much more interesting than it is in TFA. You know, they've tried to create new worlds, new races. Speaking of which, actually, while we're on that subject, there's a really, I don't know if you guys have really good I think it's called the de-cheesed version of episode 1, and the other, sorry, episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and then the other 2. They've ripped out all of the stuff with the kid going woohoo, and like they've alien dialogue,
like a re-edited one.
The alien, rather than stupid racist Japanese impressions, and they say sensible things because it's like subtitled, and it completely transforms the film.
Really?
And you watch it, it's amazing. Look on, I think it's called the anti-cheese edit on YouTube. I watched it recently, and it's a proper Star Wars film. It's a proper science for these like quite intimidating aliens. Like the Trade Federation are not idiots in it. They're astute. They're dangerous guys, and you feel that they're not these ridiculous clowns like they are in the cinematic version.
Yeah.
The race is amazing because they've cut out all of the like woohoo, and all it is the kid concentrating for his absolute life, and he has to use like the Force to connect a wire in and stuff, and it's proper tense, and he's put all these Formula 1 sounds in over the top. It's amazing, and it's like, wow, why wasn't this in the cinema? This is really good. I much prefer it to The Force Awakens. Actually, the re-edited versions of the prequels are proper, I think. So well worth a look. They're not perfect. There are bits that they couldn't change. There are bits that they couldn't remove. Jar Jar. Oh, and that's another thing. Jar Jar. They've replaced his dialogue with alien that Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan can understand. So he just talks like much cooler. Like they've subtitled it, and he's not a clown anymore. He's just a kind of local guy who they've hooked up with, who knows his way around like the villages that they need to visit. And it's so much better. And he stops being this really annoying character and becomes like, you would. He's this guy who's just happened to come along. He's at the loose end. He can help them out. So he's come with them. It's really good. So yeah, I think anti-cheese edit.
Sweet. I'll definitely hit that up. My daytime listening.
Here we go. Chat.
What was I going to say? I was just going to talk about this piece that I'm painting over for a sec.
Yeah, what does it look like without your stuff?
It's really good. It's a really good piece. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
So I mean, in terms of like technical stuff, I think this is looking great. I don't have any sort of issues with it. And that I was thinking is that I really had to look for some of the more sort of story elements in here.
Mm-hmm.
So like I didn't even see this guy in the building straight away because it was just so dark.
Is this a submission from someone in the chat?
Yes, yeah. So Dimitri in the chat.
Oh right, yeah, we chatted yesterday. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. What's going on here? Layers. So first of all, I just lighten the image up a little bit. Just get that sort of sunlight back. And then
yeah, that's much
bit.
better, isn't it? Because you can see the guy Indiana Jones's cutlass more now. That's nice, yeah.
So like you can see him here, and actually now it highlights his pose. It's like it's really good. That's kind of stopped, like he's heard a noise,
Yeah.
Which you couldn't see before. So that sort of that was something you already had in the image that just needed popping out.
So when you decided to do that, I mean, presumably you sort of asked the image question. I find this is a good technique to ask the image questions like, what do I want you to say, image? Do I want this image to be about the fence in the foreground, or do I want it to be about the guy who's exploring the building? And how can I add emphasis to the things that I want people to look at and reduce it on the stuff that I think is just the background supporting characters like the fence and the grass and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like, yeah, like you said, asking questions of the image, but also asking questions of your intention for making it. Because sometimes your intention is a very small thing, and then you spend so much time making the image that you sort of go, crap, yeah, I did have a reason for doing it.
Yeah.
And by that point, you've got some way through it, and you've kind of missed your own point in trying to do it in the first place.
So often that happens.
Yeah.
It's almost like the trail to the final image is it's not a straight line. It's a path that tends to deviate around that straight line. And often the deviations can be the most interesting things. Like, I like in this image how there's an X on the wall. Like there's something happened here that's people are trying to. Yeah. What is that? Is that like a warning or a threat or just graffiti or those kind of side things that aren't the main stars, but tell you something about the world that you're looking at? I think they're the fun parts to add in.
That's awesome. And like when I saw the cross on the wall, it reminded me of thinking of like the what do you call it, during the plague when they put cross on your door.
True.
So I was thinking like, is this some kind of like outbreak that's the reason why this is abandoned? So kind of thing, I just started putting in more foliage.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the foliage you've got, but none of it's catching this really nice light that you've got coming in. In doing that as well, I also started to separate out like this fence in the foreground, because these details are really lovely, but all the values are kind of miss them. Yeah. And by separating them out only slightly, we're getting more depth in the image. It was punched up the light a touch there, again to sort of contrast the guy without popping him out from behind.
Nice.
So by dropping light in front of him, we've got this light haze, and then his silhouette is even more. And the next thing I was about to do, collection. Did great.
Those palm leaves at the top make a massive difference. They really make you feel like you're in and under something. It's not just, you're looking in at a set. You're right in there amongst it. It feels.
Yeah, and this is something that I'd like to think about in environments, is like, where is the viewer in the environment? Like if I'm standing in this place. Yeah. In what case, like, how can I interrupt my view to feel like I'm kind of more of a voyeur, or if I'm just
totally,
maybe I'm the thing that he's scared of.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost as if you're stalking him from behind, and he hasn't heard you, he hasn't turned, so he's like, you're just like peeping at him from behind this stuff in the shrubbery. Yeah, I mean, that's like you say, he could be a hunter, you could be a native with a blow dart about to shoot him in the back with a it definitely involves you more, doesn't it?
Yeah, I could be this whole, the X's on the wall. I don't know what I am, but I like to think about that in an image, and I think that kind of leads on to more sort of storytelling elements.
Totally.
One thing that I always try and get in that same vein of like trying to figure out where I am in the image is like, if I can do some sort of big foreground gesture, and just really blur it out, like not even anything. And it's always scary because you're like, oh damn, covering up the image. But to be honest, like, these kind of things can really sell it. I'm not saying this exact thing.
Completely agree. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but look up Predator. If you look at the way John McTiernan shot it, basically it's all in close-up, and very often you'll have a super blurry leaf or a twig in front of the character's face. Literally go to any moment in Predator and you'll find that it's either like establishing shot, wide shot, but the rest of the time it's all done in extreme close-up, and it's just like you say, there's a super blurry object in the foreground that makes you feel like you're in this 3D environment and it's passing in front of the characters.
Yeah, you've got to think of it like,
let me find an example.
The view is parallaxing and you're just going through, and that can add really nice movement in itself.
Yeah, and you want to avoid people's gaze going outside the canvas.
Yes.
I was thinking, you've put that object in the foreground on the left. I was thinking that looking at that area as well, because there's not a lot going on there, and it needs to justify itself in terms of what's the point of it being in the image. And so you could put, like, for example, some drops of blood as if he's either bleeding or following a trail. Something there just to give it a reason for being in the scene. And also that gives you a sense of time, like someone has already been through here and left those drops of blood there, like he's chasing a wounded guy, or he's wounded himself, something like that, to give it like a sense of time passing, like there's a before and there's an after. That means that you can encode time into a still image. I think that's
exactly.
That's a really handy trick, and people love that because they're like, oh, what's going on here? So someone's passed this way and left the evidence of their passing. Maybe an animal has run through here and knocked over stuff or whatever. That's for you to come up with. But I love that that encoding time and story into a still image is a lot of fun.
Yeah, like I'm just adding like a very subtle, like bloody handprint on the end of the fence.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
And because of like this correlation, like they occupy the same sort of central part of the image. Mm-hmm. Hopefully your eye will catch both when looking at the bigger one.
Yeah, I mean, the X is right in the very middle, isn't it? It's like the most important detail. It's almost as if the guy is secondary to that central object, which is, you have to dig into like what's going on here. And I think that's where the fun for me always is. It's like there are two things you need to achieve. Strong combat, something that I tend to just do by trial and error, is time passing in a story, like a 5-minute snatch of time. How can I encode all of that into the image and then find a way that is a fun composition? I think trying to do both at the same time is a bit like spinning plates. It's like, whoa, there's too much going on. Focus on one thing and then the other, and you'll have a bit of a better time.
Super fun, just real difficult.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, after a while you can spin more plates, but I think I like to personally assemble the image slowly until it's starting to look like I can paint it, rather than going straight into paint, because I'm not that brilliant at painting, and I want to know that the thing I'm painting is compositionally rock solid before I start, because otherwise it's just, you can polish a turd forever and it'll never be any good, which is just the worst feeling. I hate that feeling. It's like, I worked so hard on this and it looks crap.
Yeah, I had a bit of that this weekend.
Oh, I think it never ends. It never goes away, but to minimize it, I mean, that's definitely something I'm willing to.
I see this
do all
one
that it's going to work.
tiny thing, because the building is in perspective, right? But the fence on top of the building does not seem to go with the perspective. Like as if the further away you go, the bigger the fence gets.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if you can see my screen, but I brought up a copy of Predator, and literally every shot. Okay, wide establishing shot, close up, plants in the foreground, plants in the foreground, plants in the foreground, blurry. Every single shot for the characters is in close up pretty much, and it's just like you were saying. It involves you in the image when you've got this depth.
Yeah.
Wide establishing shot. Let's skip forward a bit.
I think it was the Coen brothers, but there was like a small video on the net about how the way the Coen brothers film singles. So like, shots of people's faces, and they always do it from inside the conversation space.
Wow. Okay. So you're like actually there in the conversation.
Yeah, and they do both. So like he notices he is filming a single from like over the interviewer's shoulder and at him, and he starts explaining like why he would shoot it from inside the space, and then they sort of reposition the camera, and it makes such a difference.
Yeah.
You even like care more about what he's saying.
Yeah, you literally do. You're tricked into doing that. That's, to me, again, movie magic. It's the manipulation of the audience to give them an amazing experience.
Yeah.
I think that is so fun. Also, talking about fences on this image, it's almost like that is the iconic fence, like some square slats of uncertain material in a sort of fence shape. Actual fences never look like that. That's the iconic idea of a fence. And I think you're much better served if you actually look up some real fences and look at how they go together. They're not just rectangular slats that are somehow been bonded. They're made of metal. Normally they've got bolts, rounded surfaces so you don't cut yourself on them, or they're made out of bits of wood that have been cut to size with a saw or whatever. I mean, they're not just this sort of generic thing. And I think it always helps to avoid generic stuff and go for proper realistic detail. Same with uprights, with some cross members, but in real life porches tend to have like metal roofs made out of several pieces in this part of the world. They're rusty, they're corrugated, they've got like a lamp hanging from them. You know, look up real porches, look up real fences. And this is what I was talking about earlier, about how stuff that you would never otherwise care about becomes the absolute focus of your attention, because you're like, I don't give a toss about fences, but in this image I need to learn what fences are like and how they're built, and safety regs that have dictated their shape, or materials that have dictated their shape, or whatever. Suddenly you become dead interested in them, and like, that's how you make an image sell, I think, is have this low-key realism. Don't make it the star of the show. No one wants to see the fence be the star, but they want it to just sit there in the background as something that you can believe is real, not a cartoon fence.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of making this sort of corrugated metal sort of fascia that's going to go on here.
And there's a good example of how you can use your artistic skills to make something realistic, but also have a nice painterly feel to it. Like, I mean, you've got really nice painterly brushstrokes going on there, which describe the fence, but also look, you know, Mullinsy and painterly, and that's super fun. I think using the shape and direction of the brushstroke functionally. If you look at a John Singer Sargent painting, it's intimidating because every single brush mark is doing something. There's no scribbling. I mean, Mullins gave me a lot of confidence early on because he just sort of doesn't really care about how he gets the color down. He's just like, I need some green here, so I'll scribble it in there. And I find that really gives you confidence to paint, because I need some orange over here. There it is, there's some orange. But Sargent, it's all about like every single brush mark. It's almost like a letter in a sentence. It does something. It's perfect. And there's nothing you can remove that would. It's like all the fat's been trimmed already. Yeah. In his paintings, they're so good, and the more I learn about painting, the more I realize just how amazingly good he is.
Yeah, like when I was when I was studying at the London Atelier, they sort of trained in the same sort of tradition as Sargent did, which is
wow. I didn't realize you'd gone to an atelier. That's super interesting.
3 years.
Wow, that explains, because I mean, I've always seen that you've got that kind of solid like training, but I wasn't sure what the actual story was. That's interesting. Okay.
I taught there for a couple of years as well.
Really?
Yeah.
But would you do that again? Would you? I mean, because I'd love to just like learn the proper.
Oh yeah, I love teaching. Definitely, I love it. I think it's a great way to learn things as well.
Oh man, I couldn't agree more. Like, I find myself, I'm kind of like, what's the word? Emo, like moody. But if I've got to deal with my default position is, you know, positive and more cheerful, because I don't want to ever be like, no, that's crap. I want to be like, well, this is good and this could be better this way, and show. And I find out it makes me to kind of take care of other people, makes you a bit more grown up about taking care of yourself. Yeah. Something. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, it makes it serious because it's not just your life, it's other people's lives that you're dealing with, so it makes you take it a bit more seriously. I don't know.
No, you're right. And also I found it sort of humbled you a little bit, but also like for the first time when I started teaching, I sort of felt, and not in like a big-headed way, but I felt kind of a little bit proud of what I'd done so far, because for the first time I was explaining things to people that I actually know and have afforded me a certain amount of progress in the art field.
Yeah.
And so it was a kind of good affirmation of like, okay, you have learned something, but also like there is lots for you to still learn. So it
feels like a sort of the next logical progression, doesn't it? Like, you've learned a load of stuff, now help other people up a bit, you know, help them, pull them up. And often I find that if you give people enough slack and just a goal, they will work super hard to like impress you and impress the other people in the team and like do a good job, rather than, you know, cracking the whip and, you know, and just let them have a goal to pursue and it's such a thrill seeing people who aren't interested. Like, for example, I did a little bit of teaching in industrial design, and you have a lot of people who had to do the course, the class, their credits, who weren't interested at all, and to kind of bring them interested into it, and then by the end they were like, oh, I've had this crazy idea and I'm going to do this and this, and it's like, oh, this is brilliant. I love just seeing people kind of realize they're good at it. You know, if they try, they can be good at it. That's an amazing privilege to be, you know, to see that happen. And I still keep up with a lot of my ex-students to see how they're doing. And they're smart people. It's nice to see them do well. Yeah,
it's great. It's really great. So what I was saying about Sargent, so he's the way he's painting is done in what's known as sight size, and basically where you stand. Let me draw a quick diagram. It's easier to explain. And
it's called what? I missed the term. I didn't hear the
sight size.
Sight size. Okay.
Yeah. So if my screen's on the thing, basically, and this is a really good way to train if you find that when you're copying things, your proportions are all over the place. Because by doing this, you train your accuracy for recognizing like shapes and line and relationships between shapes as well. So this is going to be a pro drawing right here.
Okay, yeah.
That's John Singer Sargent. Yeah.
That is actually him.
That is him. That, if you look up photos, that's what you get. And there is his. It's very steady, as you can see. It's and his model would be on a platform. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, okay. And he would stand a certain distance away. Now, what happens when you stand this distance away? Diagram from above. That's John's head. That's the canvas. That's the model's head. If you put the canvas, like here, for example, between you and the model, your canvas bisects your view a certain distance. So you can, in effect, scale up and down your painting,
right?
Still paint from life. So what he was doing was putting the canvas right next to his model, but standing like up to 8 or 9 feet away,
right? So
that the painting is fully resolved at that point, as in what you're painting and what you're seeing are exactly the same size.
Yeah.
You compare them like this,
yeah.
And you only walk up to make a stroke, and then you go back. So by doing this, you can only make 1 or 2 strokes, because you can't, if you're standing here painting, you can't directly and fix your painting because that's the wrong view.
That's so interesting.
It's a proper exercise as well.
Yeah, it is.
It's almost like it's removing a lot of the computation that your brain will try and render the scene in a way that it understands. It's the difference between drawing what you see and drawing what you think you see, right?
Yeah, exactly that.
It fucks with it. It stops it. Your brain will try and arrange the scene into a thing that makes sense to it, and it's not that smart, like in that sense. Whereas if you're just copying directly from life, it retains all of that veracity and detail and, like you say, proportional correctness that you have in the image. That's a really interesting idea. I mean, I certainly find that in Photoshop, it's good to pull right back so the image is tiny on the screen and see if it still has some kind of nice strong read to it. Like, you can't necessarily see what it is, but it's got like a pleasant, composition. That stuff's difficult to do if you're too detail focused. I find that a lot of work, particularly as a result of ZBrush, means that you have this fantastically detailed work, and a lot of the details are just lost when you zoom out and kind of wasted. You can suggest detail much more efficiently than by building every single detail. You can only limit the detail to the places where you want your eye to focus. Like in this image, the guy is strongly detailed, whereas stuff over on the left in the background is less so, and that cleverly dictates where you look. I think that's those techniques are good to incorporate into your work. Contrast. Your eye will be drawn to strong contrast. Your eye will be drawn to tight levels of detail. There's a wonderful video on Facebook at the moment. Jana Sherma has done like a imagination of a girl in a hat, and she's only detailed the bits that she wants you to look at, and the rest of it is fairly abstract. And Sargent did this a lot as well, only putting the detail on the lip and the corner of the eye, and leaving ears and stuff completely generic, because adding that detail in wouldn't add any value to the painting, and leaving it out is the economic, and that's the more ninja choice. It's the more kung fu choice,
isn't it? And also, if you think, like back to this example, if you are painting, and like we would paint portraits from like 10, 12 feet away, any detail in the ear, you get like a visual light impression of like how the light falls on the face. And so it really makes you think about the strokes you're going to make. And also because you can only make one or two from memory, you don't stand up here for ages like noodling the painting. You go up, you make 2 strokes, you go back, you compare whether they're in the right place or not, you find out that they're not, and you go back and you fix it, and then you come back, and that process over and again makes your brushwork very, very efficient, but it also makes your visual accuracy like through the roof.
That's very interesting. So limit yourself to the number of brushstrokes you're allowed to make. I can only make 2, count.
Yeah, exactly. And like we would do that for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Wow.
And like it sounds quite arduous. It's not really. It's quite fun. But what you come away with is like it's visual accuracy. If I go like life drawing or anything like that, I don't really have a problem in like things not fitting on the page or anything like that. But I'm so used to comparing angles and so used to making like 2 strokes and then comparing that, that sort of back and forth just makes it sort of a lot more efficient. Not to say that I'm like super great at it.
I completely take your point. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Particularly the fact that it eliminates pointless noodling. Just pushing colors around. Often I'll make a new layer and noodle something because I think it looks wrong, and I'll be like, yeah, that looks better. Turn that layer off, and what was there before is much cleaner, and I've just kind of overworked it, overcooked it. It's very easy to do that, and I think a major constant struggle is just not doing that, not overworking stuff that doesn't need to be overworked.
Yeah, something I have to learn in as much.
Oh, interesting.
Just because, I don't know, like details are great. I love details. And I think past a certain point, I would, if this is my image, I'd be like all sorts of stuff. But it just, I find it's the thing that's ruining my paintings at the moment is having zoomed in. Maybe too early and really like missing the overall read. Like I was working on the Star Wars images over the weekend, and like just looking back at them, having like slept on them for a night and handed them in. I was just like, oh, Alex, you've done it again.
That's so easy to do, isn't it? I do that all the time. Finish an image. By the way, I was just going to say what you're doing now is really good. It's really drawing attention to that limey highlight. It's very eye-catching, and it's really dragging your eye exactly where you want it, as opposed to being over on the left. That's the supporting cast. The main star of the show is over on the right. That's really good. Yeah, well, I was going to say. Oh no, I've lost my train of thought actually. Sorry.
Cool. So I think I'll save this PSD out for you, Dimitri, and email it back to you. Really cool image. Like I love working over stuff like this.
Quickly flip it horizontally. That's always a good trick, isn't it? Interesting. Because then it's like you come at it completely new. I've never seen this image before, and all the stuff that your brain has got used to suddenly pops out as being, new.
Yeah, definitely. I think a good thing, and I always get laughed at work for doing this, but instead of flipping the image, and I'll turn my screen share off, and I'll show you what I do.
That handprint makes it, I think. That's the second point in the story that you need to make it a slice of time.
A little time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can see my face, I'll show you my little trick. So instead of flipping the canvas, right, which is everyone gets in the habit of doing it, and because of that, sometimes I'll just flip the image just because I'm in the habit of pressing the button.
Yeah, true.
And I don't actually sort of really look at it or analyze the image, especially
Good
if you've been
point.
working on it for a while.
Good point.
So get your phone screen, and if you close one eye and hold it up against your nose and look into the screen and just sort of turn it out of the screen.
Hang on, let me just find my phone.
Yeah. So what you'll get is the image you would have done if you'd flipped it. And it's two things, right? One is the black of the iPhone screen compresses the darker values, so you get a much more graphic read of the image.
Interesting.
But two, in the act of like physically having to flip the image around and looking at it in your screen, it really forces you to look at it much more than just kind of getting in the habit of pressing your button and doing it. And like you do look proper weird when you do it. But
I'm gonna do this all the time now. This is awesome.
and the other one for like ultra kung fu is sticking it under your eye like this and looking down into the screen so that you flip your image upside down.
Ooh.
And the compression of the values seems to work even more upside down. I don't know why.
That's really interesting.
But
So it's all about making it unfamiliar to your visual brain, as if it's never seen it before, and then you can judge it fresh, as if it was a complete read. That's really interesting. I'm going to do that.
Yeah, like at the atelier, they give you like a normal mirror and a black mirror on your first day, and you use those to look at your oil paintings and
that's
drawings.
cool.
Yeah, well, as I say, a black mirror is like a sexy black bathroom floor tile.
That's so interesting. I'd never heard of that before.
Yeah, neither did I until then, and now I've got this weird habit of sticking my phone on my face.
I must just quickly run to the bathroom. Sorry, one sec. I'll be right back.
You do that.
Well, in the meantime, I'm working on this underwater piece.
Yeah, awesome. Let's have a look.
So this is the original. And the first thing that I got in my mind was, oh, you can't look that far in the water, especially when it's dark. You probably won't see further than 2 or 3 meters at best. But let's forget about that. We're underwater and we're just this super underwater alien fish and we can see pretty damn far. Still, it's going to be quite fuzzy towards the end, so you won't see any clear windows there in the back. This octopus thing here, first I had it still in there and I painted over it because it cannot be brown. Everything in here is bluish, so it should be bluish as well, otherwise it stands out too much. I also removed the light on the dashboard there. I mean, if this has been rotting in the water for a while, I don't think the car is still working with that. And I warped a little bit the perspective just to draw us in a bit more. I made that building higher. I created like a whole rift instead of just having that bit in the corner.
Could you share your screen? I can't see the image. Sorry.
Oh. I'm not sure. Let's see if that
Maybe
works. It might crash my computer.
I think I might have messed it up. Am I missing something? Do I need to click on something?
If you in our Hangout.
Yeah.
If you just click on Suzanne's screen at the bottom.
Oh, there we go.
And then it will show it to you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. So. Then we have this, but what I noticed at the original here, all the interesting stuff is happening in corners. You got like a cove here in the corner, a car in the corner, buildings like obscuring to the corners, but everything in the middle of the image is just open, and there's just obvious octopus. I don't think that's the story element, right? I saw you post this on Facebook earlier. I think you believe to show like Amsterdam underwater after a big water travesty. Some years after, I suppose. Why don't you add something really cool, like a tram? You have lots of trams in Amsterdam, so you'd have to look up what a tram actually looks like. But here I'm just blocking in the shape of what it could be, and that gives you just something interesting in your image to show. So it fell partially into that hole or cove, or how you call it, and the rest is just almost like a snake sticking out.
Yeah.
Being warped. I think that could potentially be really cool. And then you have something interesting going on other than just a landscape underwater that we could actually not see with our own eyes.
I like the squid that was there, but you could make it massive and interacting with the tram.
Exactly.
Past the tram.
You can definitely bring that back that way. As long as it's not brown like this, it needs to be.
It needs to be in the same color regime as the water, doesn't it? Use an overlay layer or something to title. Oh, but that's a good trick, actually. At the end of the image, when you've got everything you wanted to paint in, it's good to drop like a light overlay layer or multiply layer of one color over it and just hue shift the color until you find one that you like. But it just ties all of the objects in the image into the same sort of color space, like all the shadows are in the same range of color to lock together really nicely. It just sort of, it's all one thing then. It's not like different images with like the values of the whites and dark. This image is doing a good job of that already. It's like everything's tied together nicely, but that's just a side issue. I liked how you turned down the blue on the dashboard. It made no sense that the car would still be functional under the water like that.
Yeah.
So I agree with that.
And you
That's
do
cool.
want to keep the light
I'll leave
consistent
the
as well. Like any light that would be in there would come from above.
Yeah. Oh, that looks brilliant with the octopus there. That's nice. Yeah.
I think that could be cool.
You
I
could
always
do
find
the
that I try and fit too much in the image. Like you were saying earlier about all the stuff being around the corners, that's so true. And I find a good exercise is to get the entire image on a new layer, like crush it all into one and copy paste onto a new layer. And like drag it so it's larger than the frame and you're just focusing in on a crop of the image. Like, yeah, perfect, exactly. And then you can move that around and find that maybe that a lot of the stuff that you were fitting in around the sides, you don't need it. You just have the star of the show, and that is a huge trick I find, to just make the image more like read more poppy. Like, I mean, you can have multiple versions, you don't have to have one crop, but it often makes a big difference to just do that.
Yeah, we don't need the top of the buildings, actually.
Maybe you don't. I mean, maybe you do, and sometimes I rearrange the image such that I can fit a key detail into the crop, but often that makes the shot so much stronger because I've tried to fit all of this crazy stuff in, and really all it needs is like the main thing, the main sort of star of the show.
Just as a quick side note, Camilla, I've got your picture here that you emailed, so I'll talk about this when we're finished with this one. Yeah, there you go. Words.
Yeah, you can talk about the Batman versus Superman thing.
Yeah.
This one.
Only when you're done.
Yeah, go for it. I'm sharing your screen.
Okay, cool. Let me see. Oh, you know what I've done? One sec. Right, there we go. So this was the image. And Camilla, is this? Oh, yeah, I met you at demo day. Welcome. Yeah, so this is the original image. She said that she's trying a new technique of using DAS and lots of photography, but feels it's gotten a bit of a mess and needs some help.
That Superman view looks huge because of that building on the side.
Okay. Like I think I like this. I like the setup, but there's a lot of potential in this scene. I think just for a start, when I was looking at it, it's starting to rearrange this composition a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Put Superman higher. Yeah. Good shout.
Superman higher. I was going to sort of make his pose a bit more dynamic too. That I'll talk about in a sec after I've cut out Batman.
Looks like he's waving hello. I think that's a bit too jolly. I think he'd be more like, it's like, who the fuck?
Yeah, I think he's kind of like waving off this grappling hook of Batman.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Swatting it away.
Yeah, doing some Superman stuff with it. Yeah, I think when kind of composing an image like this, especially because it's, imagine this would be like a keyframe in a comic or, like a double page spread kind of thing. This is going to be like the image that makes you go like, shit, yeah, I'm buying this copy. So it's got to be like super dynamic. You know, good action, good depth of field, like a whole lot. Hopefully I can sort of distort this into
maybe tilt the horizon a bit, because a flat horizon is quite sort of steady and like a, you know, a calm, whereas like when you cant the horizon really, like you tilt it a lot, it suddenly becomes like whoa, you're like, it's more action.
Oh yes,
like a bit of a Dutch
That's what
tilt.
I was looking for, Dutch tilt. Yeah,
I don't know why they call it that.
yeah, it's German as well, so there's
Is it really?
nothing.
I didn't
Yeah,
know.
there's nothing Dutch about it.
Well, okay, then doing all the Photoshop tricks right here.
Often haunted houses will have a very tilted camera because it makes it seem more creepy, and like, you know, in films where they have very close shots of the face where it's distorted, like you know, Tim Burton movies often have it. It's like, whoa, Jesus Christ, get away from the camera! You're right in my space.
All up in my grill.
All up in my grill.
Yeah. Okay, it might actually be simpler for me because I've just duplicating Batmans all over the place now. Just to sort of repaint a Batman pose in. I was thinking, like, it's a similar pose that I'm thinking of, but as if like Batman is in a like super close to the camera. When I put some highlights on it, hopefully see what's going on.
Because I'm terrible at drawing people and I've just rubbish at it, I try and think of examples where I can steal reference images of people in very similar poses to copy. Like, say, that's doing a thing that might resemble the action of a shot putter. You know, he's muscular, he's exerting himself, throwing something. Just as an example, go and look up tons and tons of pictures of shot putters, or, you know, javelin throwers, or whatever, and then use those to make my Daz guy's body, like the way he's arranged his body to look that way, just because I can't draw people very well. So that's, if you have trouble drawing people, then you can always reference images and map that pose onto your Daz model.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it, actually.
Yeah, people often forget, like, oh, I need to have him lift his arm, and they will just lift the arm in Daz instead of adjusting the whole body of making that movement. So what I always do is, well, I take my own reference photos with actions and then pose my models based upon my reference photos that I use as
ref. Ones of you all dressed in the Game of Thrones sort of get up. They were really good. I thought they were really nice.
Oh, the ones with the cave.
Yeah, I think that gave me confidence to shoot my own stuff more, because I'd never thought. I thought it's a bit of a, you know, it's a bit of an OTT thing to do, isn't it? But no, actually, no, it's not. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of old-time or classical artists do it, and I know a lot of artists still do it, but they often just have models for that. They have a whole studio get up, and I wish I had that stuff. That's my future.
Yeah, it's a bit daunting when you think, oh, do I need all these lights and blah? No, maybe you don't. You just need a camera or a phone and like a sunny day and a willing, you know, accomplice, and you can make some amazing work. And I think that gives the work so much more realism, because I'm just not prepared to tolerate like perspective errors or a muscle that doesn't exist in real life in my work, because I don't want that people looking at that rather than the topic of the image. All of that stuff needs to be absolutely true to life, otherwise it kind of gets on my nerves. I like to make it so just steal from reality is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this looks so much better with Batman like squatting like that.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, you know, Superman's pretty hench, and I don't believe that Superman is not going to win this battle. You know? So I was just making like Batman having this last ditch attempt, a bit more down. It doesn't mean he's going to lose, but it, you know, makes it better when he has his comeback or whatever.
Yeah. It's more of a chess game, isn't it? Because Superman's super strong and super fast, but Batman is bound by his oath to never kill, but he's also super clever and really like good at like misdirection and, you know, stage magic and tricking you into like going into a trap. That's his super skill, isn't it? Like he has it's not just his high-tech armor, but he has an amazing brain. Like he's a genius, so he just comes up with all these brilliant schemes. Whereas Superman's a bit more of a simple kind of person, isn't he? He's more like, I must go here, you know.
Yeah.
and fight this man.
Everyone's like, all right, dude.
Sorry?
Everyone's like, all right, dude, sure.
Just let him get on with it. He'll be right. Just, his heart's in the right place.
Like my family's from, yeah, we got it from Krypton. Yeah, from Krypton.
I must say, I'm not a giant fan of the new movie, but I love the Alex Ross comics that it's sort of inspired by. That serious Superman, Kingdom Come, and those Alex Ross ones. I think are just brilliant. I really like them. They're very good.
Yeah. Okay. So also I thought a little bit just dark. Really go. I like this underlighting that is
yeah.
that's here, and I think you can make Superman look real.
Yeah, maybe there should be some sort of construction yard light, like shining on top of him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Those plug-in lights on the yellow stands. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Make that look more ominous.
Okay, maybe it's.
Yeah, some construction guys turned it onto the Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, wow, this is a good shot. And he's shining the light up there.
Safety first,
Yeah. Just gonna see if I can pull this pose off with a quick sketch. We go.
I think it's good how you've got Batman over the scaffolding, because the scaffolding is good. It sets the scene, but it was too much the star of the show before, whereas now it's this nice textural background for Batman to kind of sit in front of. That's a good decision, I think.
And I want to give to people as well that whenever you make something and you modeled it and you got it to a certain point, if you then realize that it's wrong, don't be too afraid to start over.
Yeah.
That's often the best decision. Instead of trying to change or alter what you already have, just start over.
Oh, that's so true. Often you get an abusive relationship with the image. Like, I've spent so much time on this and it's just, it's still giving me all this trouble and emotional angst because I can't get it right. And you're so right, just to kind of just layer off and just try again and correct. Well, it's almost like the first one was just a practice, and the next one you've learned a bit more and you're having another go at it. And sometimes it might take 2 or 3 attempts. It's like shooting hoops. You're not going to get the ball in first time, but with a few attempts, you're getting closer and closer until you nail it.
Yeah, I think everyone knows when they should have started again, because you only need 10 minutes of doing something, and you're like, oh, this is difficult. That's the point at which you've done something that you should just go back and change.
If you start,
so if you're like, oh, this pose doesn't kind of work the way I thought it was. Yeah, it's because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So stop wasting time. Just change it at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get frustrated with it for an hour and then be like, oh shit.
But I find that my brain doesn't tell me what's wrong immediately. It just sort of makes me feel tired and depressed and sick and kind of annoyed. And I'm like, what is it? It's because that knee's funny. That knee looks funny, doesn't it? Look shit. And you're like, oh yeah, it's the knee. And then you're like, okay, let's just have a look at some reference, get another DAS model on the go. Come on, re-render the DAS model. Maybe the camera lens is wrong. Like sometimes you'll have stuff in the foreground that was referenced from a camera lens, like very, very long lens. And then another one is shot with a different type of lens. And the overall perspective doesn't match up. And that, it's hard to pin down why, but it bothers you. And if you then just redo it so that all of the models are a perspective regime, it all sits together and you're like, oh, all the muscles in my brain can rest a bit. Oh, it's so nice.
And you're like, oh, my backache's gone. That's so good.
It's my shoulder.
And there's a tenner in my pocket.
Not as much as they did 10 minutes ago. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, where did this tenner come from? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then.
I don't know about you, but I'll be making I try and maximize the potential for mistakes. Like I'll just move the layers around a bit or drop a model in a funny place. Normally you'd think this spaceship would be really, really small here. What if I make it massive? And you're like, that's actually 1,000 times better than what I planned. Like, I don't think that I am very good at planning ideas. it's much easier to recognize something cool that just you found and go, oh, okay, well, I'm going to pretend I thought of that, when actually you just you just saw it in the mess that you'd made. Oh, I'm going to take that and use it. Thanks very much, random chance.
Yeah, thank you. I'll pretend I'm a genius.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you didn't make it, who did? I mean, that is actually quite a difficult question to answer, because you're like, I didn't plan this, but it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't done it. So I guess I did it, sort of.
Yeah.
So weird. It's like stealing off someone who doesn't exist. It's really odd. It's an odd feeling, I think, when you just have an idea that you have a finished image at the end. You're like, wow, where did that come from?
Yeah. You're like, I'm the only one in this room.
Yeah, I don't really feel like I did it, but no one else did it. That's strange.
Got away with it.
Yeah. Yes. Nailed it.
Yeah.
I got away with it. That's the thing.
I'm gonna brag about it.
It's not free.
Yeah.
Suckers.
And this is what happens when you draw stuff all day long. You just become a complete psychopath. Because you sit there with all these thoughts all day, and you're like, God, I'm gonna say this when I see someone real. Yep. One day.
God, yeah.
When I hang around with real people.
When I grow up.
When I grow up and I'm an adult. Okay, I might have gone a bit overboard with the lightning, but I don't care. That's what I wanted.
I mean, this is the thing. You can just chuck in a bit of lightning, and if you don't like it, you're like, well, fuck it, I'll just get rid of it again. Or I'll try another bit of lightning. Maybe it's just that bit of lightning isn't working for me. Maybe if I grab 4 different images off Google, isolate the lightning and put it in at different angles and shapes and sizes, maybe I'll find something that I do like. It's and much easier to decide after you put the lightning in whether it's good than before. Like I used to sit there a lot just going like, oh, maybe I should do that and maybe I should do that. Like, no, just do it quickly.
Yeah.
Really rough.
Just do it like rough enough that you could see the idea in the navigator window, and if you're like, sweet, that looks like it's going to work.
Yeah.
Then you're in business. If it doesn't, then you still failed. But
yeah, it's not a fail. It's more like a test run, isn't it? Like a prototype. And sometimes prototypes explode. That's it's good to know, because that means that you know the limit of the your limit, basically. You know how far you can push that before it doesn't work. So yeah, if you keep doing prototypes, you tune it. That's the way I think of it anyway.
Yeah,
it's almost like
sometimes you think this is just a first try, and I can come back and build all of this in 3D if I know it's worth doing from the sketch.
Yeah, that's a good point.
For example, this sketch is looking so much more dynamic. What I would now do is go back into DAZ, move my models into these poses so that they're absolutely perfect, and re-render it, and that would be phase 2.
But what was that? No, sorry.
And once you've built it in 3D, like you'd build, I guess, the Superman, the Batman, the scaffolding in the floor and the fence, and then you can then spin it around and you can have a different angle over Superman's shoulder looking down at Batman, or a side view showing the action unfold, or whatever. Once you've got it in 3D, like you were asking earlier about making multiple images, 5 or 6, again, that's a perfect reason, because you've got 3D. Well, they don't cost you any more to render different angles. Once you've got it in 3D, it's super easy to make a whole set of different images very cheaply.
Exactly. I'm just doing a little depth of field trick here.
Show off.
I like where it's going. You should flare up his cape a little bit more so we can see his butt. Make that sexy.
Opening a whole can of worms there, Suzanne.
Yeah.
Oh, but it wouldn't be that funny if it was done with a lady.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we see it all the time.
I don't really agree with bums, and I mean, why not? It's entertainment. It's not meant to be like, a respectful, treatise on Batman. It's a Batman, Superman. It's, of course, you got muscles and bums and lasers and stuff. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
That's my personal view. Perhaps
No,
not
I
politically
get that.
correct, but
So Camilla, I hope that has helped. I think the thing to, I guess, take away from it is that you should have your idea initially, like pose your things in DAS like you did, find out that it didn't work, and then just start doing what I've been doing. It's just image as tools, and then kind of figure out a new composition, find something that does work, and then go back to DAS and refigure it. I can save these layers out for you. Not that there's anything much, but that's maybe where I would sort of take this.
It's almost like it can't fail because it's failed so many times. You found the one that doesn't. Like you failed and failed and failed and failed until you've homed in on the one that isn't failing. Like the perspective's correct, the composition rocks, everything that you want to say has been said. You've just tested it until you've got one that passes the test.
Yeah.
And it's like an iterative thing. You aspire into the thing that you want.
Yeah, totally.
I think a huge lesson I wish I could tell my younger self, would be just push through the bit where it's not really working yet, because it's yet is the operative word. You know, if you keep working it and wish listing all the stuff that you want to fix and then just working down that list, eventually you'll home in on something that starts to rock. And once it starts to rock, then it's a downhill. You just roll. You know, you just put on some music and just have a sort of paint, and it just fits together. Then it's nice. But there's no point in doing that before.
Totally. I was going to say it. Yeah, Alex, did you say you had some layers of an image you were looking at yesterday? Yeah,
I mean, I'll show you how rough and ready and ugly the way I work is, really. I mean, so if I maximize my screen manually? There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Suzanne's on it.
I'm on it.
She's on it. She's on the ball.
Yeah, so I tend to just like assemble my ingredients. It depends how much depth I want to go into. If I want to do something from multiple angles, I'll build it in 3D. If I want it just to be from one angle and be flat like a painting, then 2D is easiest because it's just quickest. So yeah, lots of Google searching just to find reference. You know, if you use this as ingredients, it's creating a new thing, not stealing a newspaper and another one from like a clothes catalog and using them in your artwork. I think that's fair use, to be honest. My personal view.
Yeah.
As long as I would never steal someone else's painting ever. Like that's just a no-no. I don't know why I have that rule when photography is. I just think commercial photography, if you're taking it from a clothes catalog, go at it. I mean, come on, you're not competing with them. It's different. So I think that's fine personally. And then just assemble the image. Turn off a load of these layers. Assemble the image slowly and get all the ingredients in and just work it until you find that you're starting to find something that fits the vibe that is in your head. Often at the start of projects, I'll be in two states. I'll be like, I've got no idea what I need to do, and I have to first go away and research and learn and draw a lot in pen. And I can show you one of those projects in a minute. But the other time I'll have a vibe, I'll have an image in my head at the start. Maybe I'll have read a book and one of the images that I saw in my mind as I was reading, that's what I want. And I have to just then put loads of stuff on the page until it starts to move towards what I want. So as you can see, a lot of experimenting with photos, very crude, really like just the absolute bare minimum to see if what I'm doing is improving it or making it worse, or moving it towards the vibe that I want, or moving away, hotter, colder, and gradually just more and more really boring. Lots of images of waterfalls. Okay, now I'm starting to find something that I like. Like, yeah, I like how that's got a sort of depth to it. Yeah, interesting. Need a rock here. Find a rock, and I couldn't have drawn a rock as good as this because I'm not, but if I find one that's realistic, then it's sort of, it ties the whole room together.
Yeah.
This isn't quite chronological because it's more like a PSD of layers, but it's roughly chronological. You can see kind of more or less the order of things. So that would be one evening's work. Like I've got a waterfall I like it behind it. I've got some water that I think has potential. I like this flat platform. It's kind of like formal, like an old school painting when you have like the woman on the shell or whatever, but it's also kind of naturalistic enough. I wanted an image, so I didn't want it to be too realistic, but not too fake either. I don't like these new Alice Through the Looking Glass movies very much. I don't like that aesthetic. It's, you know, kind of think for loads of colors, loads of glowing stuff, loads of weird looking characters. I don't know, for some reason it's like hell or something. Maybe I need to think of it more like that.
I agree.
Enjoy it. But they're very Bosch-like. I don't really like them, whereas the old Disney ones, they're so beautiful and so serene and well made that they're just quality, you know. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I can't look at those movies because they actually scare me. There's no
Yeah,
joke.
they are a bit. I mean, it's odd because normally I like that sort of nightmarish menace that some good movies have, an edge to them, but they're so trying to be cute. They're too creepy to be cute, and they're too cute to be cool. It's just sort of, ugh. I don't know. Maybe I'll come back to it later in my life and think, wow, it's genius. How did I not see the genius of it before? But I don't really like it. So too many. I guess the colors are there's too many crazy colors. I know that sounds strange, but like it'd be nicer if they constrained the colors. And like in the Disney ones, they're all a little bit more muted and a bit, you know, subtle. So yeah, that's pretty much how the image has gone together, and then I'll probably finish there and think, okay, I'll come back to it tomorrow and work it all, because as you can see, it's very ugly and rough up close. And there's also, you know, there's stuff like that which you want to get rid of. Then I'll start thinking about details, like what kind of clothes would this person be wearing? Would it be that ornamental, or would it be something more utilitarian, and, you know, bits and bobs like that. And then, yeah, painted it up a bit. So doing what we were talking about earlier with the Indiana Jones one, really, just asking it questions. Do I want the background to be that kind of a bit too much? Maybe I want it just to be a little bit lighter and just show some depth, or not, you know, maybe try out some different stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. You got to try all these things out, right?
So I think of that as a sketch, because I didn't construct it from scratch. I used Collage to put it together.
Yeah.
But you can get quite into them once you've got the collage in play there. That's pretty ugly, but there's a basis for you to paint on, and then you can start to kind of have fun with it, and like, oh, maybe an old rusty car to show that this is in the future rather than an alternate dimension or something. You know, this is our world, but in the future, you know, stuff like that. Clues like a concrete bridge shows that it's not the past. Things like that. That's when you can start to just add in little things that are ISIS to kind of bring the person who's looking at it carefully into the world, and, you know, to give them a good time while looking at it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like,
show them a good time.
Show them a good time, exactly. So I'm starting to do the same thing with this one. This is like a...
No, that's cool. It reminds me of, like, you know, the John William Waterhouse painting, Miriamne at the judgment seat of King Herod.
Oh, I was thinking of the Lady of Shalott in the boat.
Yeah.
That's something else, that painting. Oh my god.
But yeah, no, it's got a very sort of Waterhouse look to it. I really like that.
That's a huge. I'm very grateful, because Waterhouse is beyond. I think it's the kind of painting you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, no, Waterhouse is
even a little
good.
thing on the guys.
A few years ago, there's a museum in London called Leighton House Museum, which was Lord Leighton, the painter.
Okay.
His house is like open as a museum. It's free.
Cool.
You can go look around. And they had about 6 there. Leighton House on like a week, and there's like 2 people there, and you can just go in it and look at these paintings. But yeah, they had and the lady, it was.
So how big is it in real life?
Oh, it's massive.
Really?
I'd say it's like maybe 6 feet across.
Sick.
Yeah, and the Miriamne one is like almost life size. The lady in it is like 5. Massive.
These sketches to prepare, because I bet they're nice if they still exist. If there was anything
Yeah, there's a good Waterhouse book. It's the one with like the dark green, sort of emeraldy green cover. That one has some amazing photos of it.
Something about the books that's so much nicer than seeing them on screen as well. I've got some Sargent books. I paid like absolutely loads for these really beautiful Sargent books, and yeah, they're just something about reflected light off a page is so much nicer than from a screen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, they're amazing.
It's the same for when you see them in a museum. Often when they're photographed, there's just too much shine, especially when a painting has a lot of black. So it either becomes completely black or kind of grayish in a print. When you see it for real, it's actually the colors are much deeper.
For real.
Really like glows black, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. There's a painter called Antonio Mancini who was like around at the same time as Sargent. And Sargent is quoted as saying that he thinks Mancini's like the best living painter. And so if you imagine like oil painting, the lightest you can go is white and the darkest you can go is black.
Mm-hmm.
But because those paints themselves like reflect light, black doesn't tend to look black. Yeah. So Antonio Mancini was like mixing like charcoal into it.
Nice.
And he was mixing tiny bits of smashed glass into his whites so that it actually had its own highlight. So like the highlight in his white is literally broken glass. So if you click on that one that's on the top right hand corner of the lady lying in bed, yeah, if there's like a big image of that.
Yeah, I'm just going to search by size. Oh.
Yeah, like you'll see all these things. He was also painting in like a sight size kind of method, so they're very impressionistic close up. But from far away, they really resolve. And if you look at those bottles on the bathroom cap, for example,
banging, isn't it?
They are just strokes. They don't even have edges. They're just the highlights.
Yeah.
It reveals a lot about how is all that you have around the periphery of your image is this sort of sketch that's built mostly by your mind, and all you need is that, because then when you look at the face, you devote so much processing to face that this stuff is fine. It's good enough to support. You know what that is? That's a glass decanter, a bottle of brandy or wine or something, and a candle and a cup. You know, it's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't need any more.
Yeah.
Strong candidate. But anyway, yeah, he was a friend of John Singer Sargent, and Sargent was written down and quoted saying that he thought that Mancini was the best living painter.
He's one of his favourites. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like how you can zoom in on these. The details are always so nice. Like this is both an abstract composition and it's also like a rose and a hand, shoulder.
Yeah,
so nice.
They're insane. There's a rare book knocking around. If you ever get, I've got a copy of it. It's quite expensive to get hold of now, but if you're ever in London, Alex, remind me to bring it out, and I'll show you, because it's honestly it's like well worth looking at. It's crazy good.
So that's what I always love about Craig Mullins, is that he always brings that impressionistic sophistication to whatever subject he's tasked with. He's told to like paint the Master Chief. He'll do it with that sense of strong composition, kick-ass colors, tell the story, then paint it all up pretty at the end. and it works every time. Like his stuff's always got that lovely texture to it. The colors are all nice and creamy. There's no like, he uses every strategy, doesn't he? He brings his complete game. Like
Yeah.
and not hard and fast rules, but just sort of here's I know this will probably work and this will work, and if I put them together, it makes an image where there's all kinds of great stuff going on. And it's sophisticated.
Yeah.
There's a really good Sergeant one of a river that he did as a sketch for this one. I'm trying to find it, and it's maybe my favorite he ever did. It's so sick.
The sickest. The sickest prop.
Blood, that classic impressionist oil painting is so sick. Blood,
Mate.
mate.
You ain't seen nothing till you seen Sergeant Mate.
This is what where I live's like. He painted like, I think it's the Thames somewhere, Berkshire or something. But yeah, where I was painting.
Amazing.
Cambridge in the summertime.
Talk of summertime, just a real quick segue while I have to plug what we're doing this in aid of.
Yeah.
Industry workshops, everyone. If you've not heard of it, it's a workshop that is happening this summer in London, organised by myself, Richard, Daniel, and Levy, where everyone, lots of artists in their VFX, movies, games, concept art, costume design industries, will be coming together for a weekend to do lectures and
Drink a lot of booze.
drink a lot of free beer and eat a lot of free breakfast for a weekend in London. And if you go to our website, which is www.industryworkshops.co.uk, you'll see that it's been made over beautifully by Daniel Matthews' fair hand. And there's all the information there, ticket prices, of all the lecture and demo artists that we have. And it's going to be a real great weekend, and it'll be awesome to meet you all in person.
Yeah.
Talk to some of your friends, they might have already been, and hopefully you'll say some good stuff about it. But it's been a great thing for like me to get involved in, and I've learned so much. I even got a job out of being there. So
Yeah. It's for all levels as well. If you're like an industry veteran, it's great to catch up and learn stuff from younger people or other people, and the other way around as well. If you're super new, this is like the best chance to meet people, to learn stuff, to get your portfolio reviewed, and maybe just like Alex in the past, get a job.
Yeah, it's super fun. Super fun. And Aaron Beck's going to be there, my hero. So I'm excited.
yeah, exactly. Like I said, if you have a look at the website and look at the list, there'll be someone on that list that you killed.
Mike Hill, rocking it.
Yeah, Mike Hill, killing it as always. No, it's going to be real good. So,
Let's drop in the link as well. There you go.
yeah. So yeah, there you go. That was my little plug.
I love
No,
the
I
way
can
the
confirm
website
it's
looks.
extremely good fun. I'm always like terrified of those things, but actually it's really good. And after the first the first day super awkward, but after that, when everyone's had a good old knees up and suffering through together, it's it's really good fun.
Yeah.
It's all
It's
right.
very good, and yeah, it's going to be much bigger and much better than ever before. We've got an amazing, which is the Truman Brewery.
Yeah, and it's
just-
the best nightclub as well. It's awesome, that place.
Yeah, so it's going to be very, very good. We're going to have a blast, people.
Yeah.
And yeah, there you go.
In the meantime, I am breaking my Wacom pen.
Yeah. Oh, if you pulled the inside out,
Yeah, sort of.
don't
I
do
fixed
that.
it. I always play around with it, and then the amount of times I took this button off it, it's a wonder. It's a miracle that it's still working.
Excellent.
Are there any more audience picks?
Yeah, more images.
I have got one here. Do you want me to send it to you on the?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be gone for like 1 minute.
Okay. Yeah, if we'll make this on the last one. So I guess, hang on, not sent it. There we go. Let me check the name. This is from Braden Barrett. If you're there, I'm going to go over your image now.
Nice. Okay. First impressions. Yep. Fine. Good. Nothing like annoys me. It's all making sense. Yeah. Okay. I think that's a very strong like tool. Like, what do you see the first 2 seconds you see it? Does anything bug you, or is it like, oh,
Yeah, no, it's got a good initial read.
there you go. That's what I was groping towards. Initial read. When you first look at it, with what thoughts in your brain happen?
Yeah. So I've just got a list here of like common phrases. I'm just looking at
the soundboard.
No, I've got a better articulation soundboard.
I think that's pretty solid, isn't it? That looks fine. I think maybe the device in the hovering object, perhaps that could do with a little touch more like sparkle and a bit more detail, but you know, that's easy thing to fix. I think I like it.
Yeah, was the intention for it to be black and white, or let's try to see if the person's in chat here.
I wish I did this more. I always forget to do the black and white kind of composition study. I'm always too eager to get into color. I should do this more because it does make sure that you have a nice, strong black and white hue.
No, yeah, it does.
No, what's the other one? Tone.
Yeah. Yes.
I can do technical terms. Look.
Yeah, I know. I got faith in you. Mucho's faith. Yeah, Braden. Is the intention to have it in black and white? I'll be coloring soon. That's usually the downfall. Okay. So to be coloring it soon, but that's usually the downfall.
There's a good art germ video on this using. Someone put me onto it the other day using. Oh God, what the hell is it called? He basically has a way of coloring a black and white sketch to stop it being muddy. Let me find it. He uses this thing that I've never seen before in Photoshop, even though I've used Photoshop for ages, that I've never actually pushed that button.
It's embarrassing when that happens, isn't it?
Oh man, I love it though. It's like, oh, but at the same time, yeah.
Someone's like, hey, you should just use the blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh yeah, what's that? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, oh yeah, I know what it is, but like, tell me, where is it?
Yeah, this is good. This is a really good video actually. Stanley Art Germ. If I put this into the chat, will that show up?
Yeah.
Check that out. How to Add Colors to Grayscale Painting by Stanley Art Germ Lau, I think. Really, really good video. And I think his videos are great, actually.
Oh my god, his glasses are amazing.
It's good stuff.
Let's see, let's catch up with chat. I dropped a link to my portfolio in the beginning of the chat. Marnix is saying.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Alright.
We'll have a look at that in a sec.
Talking, because when we were going through a project earlier, I've put a lot of my stuff on my Dropbox. So it's, I think, and there's a link in the chat, I think, at the very top. I'm not, because I can only see what me and Alex and Suzanne have put. I can't read what anyone else has said. So, but yeah, there's a link to all my projects in there, so you can have a look if you want.
I will share it again for people.
How they come together. Oh, okay, cool. It shows how the finished image came to be, and there's a lot of the background to show that I kind of worked towards the finished image. It didn't just come out of nothing, so it's, maybe demystifies a little bit, and people can kind of use that if they want to make their own projects. So.
Perf. Alex, if you look at our chat, I'm just dropping a portfolio in here.
someone wanted you to look at.
Perfect.
There's a lot of cool vehicles in here.
Okay. All this stuff's really good. It's like, send us some stuff that has problems with it that we can fix. Because at the moment, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. It looks completely fine.
The more we do streams and viewers send stuff in, the more I'm like, shit, I need that on my game. You know, I was just looking at stuff people were sending in. I was on Suzanne's stream a few weeks ago, and someone sent in this really cool 3D scene of like, do you remember Suzanne, the guy behind the wall?
Oh yeah, that looks so finished.
It's from Matthias. Yeah, and he sent that in as like, you know, oh, can I get a critique? And I was looking at it like, shit, I don't know 3D. Like, this is a great image, you know. The level of people now is.
Yeah, you sometimes feel a bit nitpicky, don't you, trying to find things that are too wrong with it. Either something, yeah, I find a lot of the work these days has got a lot of this stuff down. Like, people understand that composition's important, and, you know, detail distribution and stuff like that. I sound clever. I try and sound clever talking about. They all like, yeah, I know that.
No, it's good. It's good to see the level getting like pushed so hard.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's inspiring because, yeah, like I said, every time I look at work I get sent, I'm like, shit, like, could I do that?
Yeah. So I'm looking through these vehicles. I've seen these before. I like this stuff. It's got a very distinctive sense of itself, which I like. I like how it's all been sort of run through a aerodynamics simulator. The thing that I always think is the next step with this is, if you've gone to the trouble to do the aerodynamics simulation, learn what's wrong with it, if there is anything in those diagrams saying there's too much drag here or something, and build something that alleviates it, and iteratively do that until its drag coefficient or its handling downforce levels or whatever are really good. Sort of evolve it in the wind tunnel, because at the moment I think this is brilliant, but it sort of, I don't know what any of these things mean, but I presume there is a way of looking at this and going, okay, well, this needs it's going very light at high speed because it's getting lift. It needs a spoiler, and it needs the spoiler in front of the center of gravity or whatever. I'd love to see it evolve like that and become something actually real. I don't know, maybe that's that's too geeky. But I think if you've gone to the trouble of putting it into a simulator anyway, change it and see how that change affects it, and you'd learn hands-on how about aerodynamics. It'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, actually. Like you said, if you've gone through the trouble of making sure that it does work in that way, then go the next step and then really
improve it.
Yeah, improve it, make it work.
Because I'm skeptical that these shapes are aerodynamic in a way that benefits the handling of the car, because racing cars don't look like that. These wheels coming out like this, maybe there's a way that you could fare that in that would smoothen it out. And I don't want to say that, oh, you know, it's wrong because it's not really functionally aerodynamic. I make projects all the time that have no functionality. They're just for looks. I completely get it. So I'm just being kind of nitpicky, really. There's details I love about this, though. I love the style. Like, it's you know, it's a hot rod. It's not about pure performance. It's more about just drama, isn't it, and style. So I like stuff like that on the components. That looks cool. It's like a mixture of royal coach with racing car. That's kind of nice. I like this. It's a hot rod, isn't it? Giant hot rod.
Yeah. You should have a look at his drone, the Arrowhead drone.
Okay, let's have a look. Okay. These do look sick as well. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know what they mean, but they look awesome. I always like when stuff looks like an angry face. It's a way of making an image really eye-grabbing. If it look like, you know how moths have eyes on their wings, it's exactly the same thing. It's like, whoa, look at these angry eyes. Makes you look at it, and then you're like, oh no, it's a plane. It's cool. I like it. It looks like a war mask, you know, like a kind of battle mask from ancient African cultures. You know, got the crazy masks, or in Papua New Guinea or something. I think that's really cool. I like when technical illustrations take on a sort of bit more druggy kind of, whoa, what's going on here? Like plane, or is it a space or what? It's just, you know.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I like that. I like putting your like faces in armor.
Yeah.
For that reason, and also it's that kind of intimidation factor.
Right, exactly. Often stuff does kind of look like a goofy face. You'll see faces everywhere. You know, people are trained to look at faces because we reveal so much about art. So it's the place where you reveal the most about your thoughts, isn't it? In face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's cool. Nice.
Yeah, very nice.
This surface language onto the obviously still an F-22. You can, you know, the metal is different. I would think it would tie it together better if they were blended, but it's a cool image. That's nice. Okay, there you go. Good job. So yeah, that's got the same surfacing. It looks cooler.
Yeah, that looks awesome. What would you say about mixing functional design with stuff that simply looks awesome? Where are the limits, and what does it depend on?
They move on every project, their limits. It depends, because if you want to make a biopic about someone in the 70s, but you want to make it look artful, then you're limited by what technology was available in the 70s or whatever. You know, there are limits and they change, but I think as long as it looks awesome and services the story, then it's fine, to be honest. You know, magic, it's fine. Elves, don't mind them. You know, as long as it's in service of the story. Lord of the Rings isn't realistic, but doesn't you know, it's fine. It's realistic in the right ways, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and as I say, the tone of the project you might have one film that's whimsical and magical, and another that's gloomy and you know, industrial and realistic, and you got to change your style to suit, I guess. Although that's not always easy by any means. That's an important thing to try and do anyway. I think it's easy to argue about it forever. Really, it depends. So sometimes I'll just make an image and then try and find technical excuses for it to exist, rather than it be a picture of something. So, I like this shape. Now let me find reasons for it to have arranged itself that way.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Alrighty. I was going to say, I think maybe we should wrap it up soon, because I don't know about you, but I've not eaten.
I am so hungry.
Any dinner. But yeah, thank you very much, Suzanne, for hosting us this evening.
No problem, anytime.
It's been a real pleasure hanging out with both of you two.
Thanks very much. It's been fun.
Likewise.
It has indeed. And thanks to everyone that to be critiqued. That was really good. And the level of stuff that I painted over, I'll try and email back to you. And yeah, excellent.
Please see some of you guys in August in industry workshops. It'd be good to see you.
Definitely.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right. Well, see you later, everyone in chat.
Bye.
This will be up on Twitch and on YouTube. So yeah, cool.
Catch you all next time.
Catch you all next time.
Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.